In the beginning of the film, Iris, lying on the bed, has a faraway look on her face. Beside her, her husband is sleeping soundly. After some time, she gets out of bed, takes a knife from the drawer, and heads out of her house, leaving her phone behind. She drives through the forest, parks her car, and treks up the Rocky Mountains. When she reaches the top, she places her son's toy boat in the memorial and looks at her son's photo wistfully and begins carving his unfinished initial, M, for Mateo in the tree. She hears a scraping sound and goes to investigate, but it's just the wind. As she gazes at the vast forest, she clenches her fist and considers ending her life. However, she's interrupted by a man named Richard. He asks about the memorial he saw on the trail, but she refuses to talk about it. Standing at the edge, she looks down once more. Richard jokingly suggests that if she's going to jump, she should at least tell him her name. She remains silent. He starts talking about his life, sharing how he was a car enthusiast until a terrible accident with his girlfriend, Chloe, during college happened. He reveals that they were arguing before the crash and feels guilty about the last words he said to her. She says sorry to him. He adds that he spent 2 months on the hospital bed, which was excruciating to him. Iris opens up about the death of her son, Mateo. She recounts how her husband was carving their initials into a tree while Mateo was gathering 3 sticks to roast marshmallows. Mateo boasted that he could find the sticks in under a minute, but Iris doubted him and went off to collect wildflowers. They didn't hear when their son fell. She laments that the world takes what it wants and wishes it had taken her instead. She confesses that she couldn't cry, which she considers the worst part, and admits to feeling broken. Richard offers words of comfort, assuring her that being broken doesn't mean being hopeless. As he bids her goodbye, she finally reveals her name as Iris. Richard emphasizes that the choice of what to do next is hers and points out the beauty of the day before leaving. Iris follows him, and together they leave the mountain trail and head towards their cars. Once they reach their respective cars, Iris bids him goodbye. Richard asks whether she would go back again at the hilltop when he drove off, but she reassures him that she wouldn't today. He smiles and says he will take today and enters his car. Since Richard has parked so close to Iris's car, she couldn't get in. Seeing this, Richard gets out and comes towards her with a mysterious-looking umbrella. She asks whether it is for rain, and he simply says, "You cannot be more prepared." Then he plunges the umbrella's base into her stomach, which emits electricity. She faints, and he hogties her, places her at the back seat of his car, and starts driving. When she comes to, she panics, then she tries to call her husband through her smartwatch. Richard sees this and informs her she will not get a signal here. Iris says to Richard that her husband will be looking for her, and that he doesn't have to do this. Richard adds that he had heard this phrase from many women he had kidnapped before, and how they say they have children and they are a mother, which he doesn't care about. He then places a toy boat near her. She cleverly takes her knife and starts cutting away the plastic tie. To distract him from seeing her using the knife to free herself, she asks about Chloe, but he instead asks her to tell her son's name. She reveals his name was Mateo. Iris asks whether Chloe was pretty. He replies that she indeed was, and Iris reminds him of her. Iris asks what he plans to do to her. He says that he has a place in the woods and wants to braid her hair. She cuts her rope, then attacks him, which leads to the car crashing into a tree. She tries to get out, but he pulls her hair, and a fight ensues. In the end, she manages to escape. She grabs the boat toy and puts it in her pocket, then tries to run, but Richard appears in front of her. He randomly asks whether she has started to feel anything yet. Iris asks him to stop the bullshit and tell her what he means. He reveals that he injected a paralyzer medicine into her body and that her whole system would shut down in about 20 minutes. He explained in about a minute, her fine motor skills will decline, making it difficult to hold things like a knife or a phone. At minute 10, her legs will start to tingle. At minute 15, her legs will lose function. At minute 18, her breathing will become labored. And at minute 20, she will lose her voice, and her body gets shut down, paralyzed. She runs away, dropping her knife in the process. While running, she tries to count using her fingers and recalls a memory of teaching her son how to count. She snaps out of the memory when she spots Richard, who informs her that they will have a whole weekend together after an hour. She runs away again, but when she tries to count with her fingers, she can't. She sets her watch to 20 minutes to keep track of the medicine's effects. She is having trouble walking, so she drags her foot through the forest. In about 3 minutes, her legs will give out completely. She now crawls towards safety. Closely behind, Richard is calling out her name. She hides inside a tree trunk that is crawling with ants. Unable to control the pain, she cries out. Hearing her, Richard heads towards her. However, she jumps into the water which carries her to someone's lawn. Now, she has completely lost the ability to speak and move her muscles, and her breathing is labored. An old man who is cleaning his lawn with a leaf blower sees a woman on his lawn and asks her if she can speak, but she can't move her mouth. He moves his finger in front of her, and her eyes follow his movement. She blinks her eyes. Noticing this, he asks her if she can hear him, and she blinks. The old man asks if she is able to move, but she blinks twice, indicating no. He then asks if she is hurt, and she blinks twice. He informs her that he will take her inside and call 911. She blinks once, as if to say okay. He brings a wheelbarrow and drags her inside. Then, they hear a knock. She rapidly blinks, indicating that it is probably Richard, and that he shouldn't open the door. But the old man doesn't understand what she is saying. The old man opens the door and comes face to face with a disheveled Richard, who asks whether he has seen his wife. He explains that she is short, pretty, and that they were involved in a car accident. The old man, feeling suspicious, adds that he will call for help and closes the door. But Richard comes inside anyway and searches for Iris, and she is not on the wheelbarrow. The old man threatens to call the police if he doesn't leave. Richard asks him whether he has a phone because he lost his. He adds that he doesn't care if the police come because he lost his wife. The old man sits down and asks his name. He says his name is Andrew and that his wife has some mental health problems. He adds that she was driving while they were arguing. She floored it and crashed the car, and he can't remember what happened after that. The old man asks what her name is. He replies, Chloe. Behind the sofa, Iris is listening in on their conversation. Richard adds that his wife becomes catatonic when she gets bad. The old man replies that it must be complicated. Richard asks whether the old man has anyone in his life. The old man reluctantly opens up about his wife, who had a heart attack, and how both of them were focused on him and overlooked her health. Richard says that the world will take what it wants, which Iris had said to him before. The old man asks whether he loves his wife. He replies yes. Then, when the old man is about to tell Richard where Iris is, Richard's phone buzzes in his pant pocket. The old man becomes suspicious again and asks him why he has his phone in his pocket when he said he lost it. Richard blames his disorientation and asks the old man what he was about to say. Richard asks the old man point blank where she is. He apologizes and says that she is in the garden shed. But Richard doesn't believe him and asks him to hand over his phone. While Richard is distracted, the old man uses this opportunity to push him into the shelf, causing him to fall harder. While the old man is talking to 911, Richard wrestles the old man down, and a fight ensues. While Richard is down, he grabs a knife, all the while distracting the old man by saying how his actions would make his wife feel. When the old man is about to strike Richard again, Richard plunges the knife into the old man's foot. Richard mercilessly stabs the old man. Since he couldn't find Iris, he pours gasoline into the house and throws a match inside. The house is now aflame. Iris tries to get Richard's attention by drawing a blind, and when he accidentally sees the window, he knows she is inside. He goes inside, carries her out, and places her in his car. He adds that he has never killed a man before, and jokingly says there's a first time for everything. Then he gets a call from his daughter, who excitedly tells him that she has secured good marks. The daughter mentions that they will meet at the cabin, which is unexpected to him. He tells his daughter to give the phone to her mother. His wife, Lizzie, mentions that he is always going on alone trips lately, and that their daughter, Olivia, needs a change of scenery. Richard reluctantly agrees. He notices the petrol fuel is low. They stop at a gas station. He puts a hat on her and goes outside to fill up the car's tank, but on the board it says paying via card is temporarily out of order. He goes inside to pay using cash. Iris, inside the car, tries to get the seatbelt off, and behind them, a car pulls up. A woman and a child get off. She manages to get the seatbelt off, and the child is suddenly at the window of the car, reminding her of her son. The woman scolds her child for wandering off like that. The woman seems suspicious about Iris, who seems desolate. Richard fuels the tank, fastens her seatbelt, and goes back to the place they originally crashed at. He changes his clothes, takes out the syringe, umbrella, and some other stuff from his car to the old man's truck. He takes out the tools from the old man's truck and starts repairing his car. A moment later, a police car pulls up behind them. The police officer goes to Richard and asks him what is wrong. Richard informs the officer that his wife, who is drunk, crashed their car. The police officer informs him that he got a call from the lady at the gas station. At that moment, Iris tries to speak. The police officer goes near her and Iris tries to ask for help. It took the officer a while to understand. Using that moment as an opportunity, Richard strikes the officer and kills him. Then he pours gasoline and burns the vehicle. Richard drives off from there. Iris asks whether he made himself helpless, but Richard replies no. She asks whether he is doing this because of his girlfriend, or whether he has lost his mind since he was on the bed for 2 months. He abruptly stops the car and says that he found clarity while his girlfriend was dying in front of his eyes. He liked seeing his girlfriend die. Iris asks what it was that he said to her while she was dying, and he says that he thanked her. Iris urges Richard that he shouldn't have to do this, especially considering he has a beautiful family and his wife and children are still alive. She says that she has lost his son, which is very painful to her, and adds that if he keeps doing this, he will feel the same way about his daughter when he is in jail. She asks him to drop her on the side of the road. Since she couldn't inform about him to the police, she doesn't know his name and the identity. She also mentions how broken doesn't mean hopeless. The words Richard said to her. He scoffs and says he is not broken and informs her the plan has changed and drives towards some pier. When they reach there, he mentions he is sad how their time got short. Iris stabs him with the syringe, but her fingers don't work well. He laughs and says she hasn't gained full function in her body. She tearfully asks why he is doing all of this when she already tried to commit suicide at the hilltop herself. He says he wanted to make her want to live the life, then crush them up because he likes it. She screams. He takes out his knife and hogties her. He drags her onto the boat and starts sailing. She sees a knife in his belt and starts sobbing, saying she has one last wish. She wants her son's toy, which is in her pocket. Seeing her crying, he agrees. When he comes near her, she grabs the knife and plunges it into the side of his neck. She manages to push him off the boat. The boat fills up with water. She drowns, then swims out to the shore. Then she sees Richard fighting for his life. She simply thanks him for giving her the will to live. The end.
The end.